joined by an incredible, wonderful, fantastic streamer who I have played horror games with on several occasions. It is HailHeidi. And Heidi, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Astrid. I really appreciate that. I'm happy to be here.
Back when you were, because I remember when years ago when you were streaming and you were playing a lot of horror games. You played all the like the sort of hits that were coming out right then and there. And you still play horror
hmm
games from time to time. The first
hmm
question I have is currently, right now, what would you say your favorite horror game is?
Okay. This one hasn't changed in a while. I'm just so biased to Outlast. I love
Okay.
Outlast. I think it's just one of the best horror games made. I always recommend it to anyone who's either getting into horror or if they haven't played it before and they do like horror. That's always 100% the first game that I recommend. I just think it has a lot of good horror aspects. It's just Outlast, for some reason, all of their games know how to get you like kind of with the gore, but also just the I don't know, the psychological like it just freaks you out like the different situations and things like that.
Hmm.
So I love Outlast, but there are a lot of good games out there too.
Have you played or are you planning on playing Trials that just came out?
Yes, I have played a little bit. I really like it. Are you or have you played it yet?
I haven't played it yet.
No.
I I will at some point.
Yeah,
That's just kind of my thing. Um,
sure.
if it's a horror game, I will play it at some point. But uh, I find it. So you say Outlast, as in the first one. How did you feel about Outlast 2?
So I really loved it. It was definitely a different, like a way different type of story, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like it also had kind of a good. I think that the story was a little bit deeper, a little more kind of heart wrenching in Outlast 2, which was kind of cool. Um, and then the graphics were a bit better, things like that. But I really loved it. Just every Outlast game that I've played is fantastic. A lot of people don't like the second Outlast as much as the first one. I don't really know why actually, but I personally love it. And I also think that bringing in more of I think that every Outlast game is so funny because they always bring in some kind of like creepy, like culty, religious type of things, which kind of like hits me as like like really kind of terrifying when you get into that kind of like mentality and things like that when it comes to horror. And so Outlast 2 really, really leaned into that, I would say. So I kind of like that about it, but I thought it was very good.
Yeah, then not only is it evil cult, but the evil cult is uh, like there's actually substance there. They're not just uh, conning people. Like, no, there's an evil entity that's actually there.
Exactly. Very scary.
I have personally like mixed relationships with both Outlast 1 and 2.
Okay.
Basically, I like the story to the first one a lot, but
hmm
I get exhausted running away from things.
Oh,
Whereas in
okay.
the second one, I didn't like the story as much, but I loved the opportunities that it gave me to be sneaky.
Okay.
So it's like, which one do I like more? I don't know. I enjoyed both, and there's things that I like for one that I didn't like in the other, and vice versa. Kind of like, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick which
Mm-hmm.
one I enjoy more for me, but
That's
I
fair.
am curious about Trials because I don't know how you felt when they were like, hey, this is going to be multiplayer, because that just seemed like, oh, how's that going to work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was like, okay, I have no idea what to expect. Is this going to be like Dead by Daylight? Is it going to be like Devour? Is it going to be like I just had no idea. Um and so going into it, I still really had no idea how the gameplay was going to work. I just knew that I wanted to play it the first day it came out because I freaking love Outlast. So I'm like,
Right.
I don't, it might be terrible, but I'm gonna play it as soon as it comes out.
That's the
Um,
spirit.
yeah. But I definitely, I mean, I don't know if like talking about gameplay is going to be any kind of spoilers or anything like that. Um, but I
Give
I
us the
guess
HailHeidi exclusive.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So I don't want to like give anything away for people who haven't played the game, but I personally love um how so it does bring in a little bit of story. I'd say it's not as deep of stories as is in like the original Outlast games. I feel like that's usually how it goes with multiplayer, but um I did like so one of my favorite multiplayer horror games is Devour, and so the gameplay is very very similar to kind of like a Devour esque type
Mm.
of game, which I always like. It's fun to try and get an objective done with your friends, fight against the game type of thing. I love that. So that's kind of how Outlast Trials plays, which is really fun. And then I do love it. It looks like they're going to be. It looks like there's quite a bit to play, which is awesome. I wasn't sure if it was just going to be like go in there, okay, do it really quickly, and you're done. But it looks like there's quite a bit of leveling up you can do, upgrades, things like that, which is also kind of really cool. So, but I did play it just with a friend of mine. It was just me and them. We played a couple of rounds and tried it out, and it was really fun. But I am thinking that it will probably be a bit easier with 4 players rather than 2. So if you're wanting to play that, make sure. I mean, I would recommend having 3 other people with you when you play, but definitely recommend. Definitely creeped me out. Just in the first like 5 seconds, and so, um, yeah, I think people are going to like it if they haven't played it yet.
Awesome. Whenever I pick it up, I'll just be like, Heidi, remember when you said if you're ever looking for someone to play
Heck yes.
with?
Please invite me. I'd love to play.
Absolutely. Um, Speaking of multiplayer horror experiences, where do you land on something like another game that I noticed you were playing a lot for a while? I don't know if you're still playing it, but 7 Days to Die as a horror game experience. What do you think about that?
Okay, so 7 Days to Die, I really like mostly for the the multiplayer experience. I do think it's really fun to have kind of an open world um horror game. Like I love like Minecraft, things like that where you can play with your friends and kind of explore and build and um do quests, whatever. Um but 7 Days to Die is nice because it just adds zombies into that. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a Minecraft but zombies and I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I would say um the horror aspect isn't as strong on that one. If you're looking for something to like really terrify you and um catch you off guard all the time, um that one I probably wouldn't recommend as much, but it is really fun. The challenge is really what's fun about it. Because every 7 days in the game, you have a big zombie horde, and each 7 days, like it just keeps going on, and every 7 days it's more and more intense, and so you have to build up your I don't know, your defenses, try and get the best weapons, meet up with your friends and do horde night type of thing every 7 days. And so I love that. But I do think that there is an aspect of you can kind of for the most part get used to the horror going on in it. I feel like you can get to a point in that game where you've kind of seen a lot of similar types of zombies, things like that. And so I do think that people, you get less and less scared, which makes sense. That's how it is with any horror game. But I do think that the thing that I love most about that game is more of the kind of open world challenge with your friends. But the zombies help me to stay interested sometimes. But I do think that kind of the end game is more just leveling up your character, getting the best weapons, building a house, things like that. So that's I guess my perspective on 7 Days to Die. But I love it. I think it's a blast.
In that regard, then, so horror games as a multiplayer experience, you said Devour, it's one of your favorites, and
hmm
Outlast Trials, you compared to it. Is that kind of what you're looking for in a horror gaming experience, or is there something else out there that you think could be in horror, besides just this sort of explore the map, look to find the thing that you need, and then run, grab it, bring it to the place that is going to destroy the monster or whatnot? Because there's lots of different ideas of co-op horror, and a lot of them seem to be sort of this almost concept of everyone needs to be trying to find something, like an item hunt kind of thing. Like,
hmm
do you think that really really works, or is there something else out there? Because I've thrown out 7 Days to Die as a sort of, hey, that's horror, that's multiplayer. Is there anything else out there you think that's uh, a horror like experience that is a little bit differently paced than an Outlast or Devour?
Hmm. That's a good question. I don't think I've thought of that before. Um, but I think it is kind of true that we're seeing a lot of the same types of multiplayer horror games. I think that there's a lot of, yeah, find the items, get to the objective, get it done without getting caught, revive your friends, things like that. There's that type, and then yeah, the open world kind of more, um, where you can kind of go at your own pace. I do wonder if, because something that I love and some of my favorite just single player horror games are the very heavily story based
Mm-hmm.
ones where you kind of go through and then there's a cut scene and you go further and then there's a cut scene. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really like I don't know if I've experienced a horror game that has that type of aspect, but with multiple people, I think it would be I don't know how they would do that if it would be, but um sorry, it would I'd want it to be first person because
Mm.
those are the types of horror games that I personally love, story based or multiplayer. But if you could make some kind of or if we could find some kind of game where it's first person, you're going through kind of a story with your friends that's very heavily story based, like I wonder how that would work, but I could see that being like a challenge to make work, but it could be really cool and it would kind of bring two of my favorite aspects of playing horror games together because I do love playing with friends and doing those objective games. Sometimes it can get a little repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so bringing the multiplayer with a really well thought out storyline could be really cool. But I don't know. Have you experienced anything like that? I don't think I have, and I don't know if it would be done very well, but that's an idea that I would maybe have.
The closest that I think that I've played that comes to that hasn't unfortunately been first person. Well,
Right.
there's GTFO, which is first person, but it doesn't have a super narrative based story to go along
Mhm.
with it, but it is very different from other horror co-op experiences.
Yeah.
But
GTFO is a good one.
yeah,
Oh,
it's really hard too.
it is it. The challenge makes it fun too. Another one that I just thought of that might be like the closest thing I could think of is, have you ever played oh my gosh, what are those games? It's kind of like the point and click, like choose your fate type of games.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
The supermassive kind of games that like Until Dawn and The Quarry and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. I feel like those might be the closest, but and those are a blast, and it's cool that you can play it with one other person or something like that. So I'd want maybe something like that, but first person where you kind of feel like you're in an escape room with your friends or something, but you're kind of going through this story together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think that would be cool because I love The Quarry or those types of games.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, like, the stories are very, very moving and you feel very invested and drawn in. But I guess it's not so. I love when I can feel like I'm in the place of that person in the game. That's when I get really,
Right.
really scared, which I love about horror games. I love getting freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
We're weird like that. I don't know. Um,
That's why we do
but yeah,
it.
exactly. Isn't that so funny? Um, so yeah, I think that that's a type of horror game that maybe we haven't seen that I would hope could be done well, but who knows if anyone's working on something like that.
Yeah, because otherwise, I think of Resident Evil has dabbled in it with Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, um,
Mhm.
Resident Evil Outbreak on the PlayStation 2. They had their rail shooters, which were the Umbrella Chronicles and the Dark Side Chronicles.
Okay.
I don't remember if Umbrella Corps was multiplayer, but no one should play that game anyways. Um, Operation Raccoon City is another one that they try to do something like that. I don't remember if there was. I don't remember what the story to that game was.
Mhm.
But besides that, the other one that comes to mind is Obscure and Obscure 2, which were PlayStation 2 games.
Okay.
But yeah, not
Yeah.
first person, which is interesting. What is the first person barrier happening here? Why can't I think of any narrative co op games in horror that are first person?
Right. Maybe they don't exist. But no, I can't think of any either, which is interesting.
I guess the closest would be, even though it's more on the lines with 7 Days to Die, would be like The Forest.
That's true. The Forest was amazing. I did like that. That could be really, really close, actually. I personally played, so I played The Forest a little bit and I didn't even know that there was a storyline at all. So we were just building and I was just building with my friends and killing cannibals and I didn't really know where the game was going at all and I didn't ask. But when Sons of the Forest came out, I had learned that there was a story to it and that there I should expect a story in Sons of the Forest. I ended up playing it by myself, just I don't know because I think a lot of the time, especially when I'm streaming, I just when I play by myself, it just goes a little bit smoother. I
Mm-hmm.
can talk to my chat easier, things like that. But off stream, I'll usually like to play with other people. But I don't know. I didn't get to play Sons of the Forest with other people. I just haven't done that yet. So I wonder. Did you end up playing Sons of the Forest?
I never finished The Forest,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't super interested in Sons of the Forest. I will play it at some point, I am sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
yeah, I just haven't yet. That's all it really
Yeah.
is.
That's fair. I wish that I had played the storyline of The Forest so I could, see if it might be worth it for you or something because I just have no idea what the first one was to compare the second one to. I know that I liked the second one a lot. I think that the story could have been a little bit stronger, and I ended up a little bit confused at the end, but
Mm-hmm.
it was still a really fun time, and I thought that the gameplay was very cool, and yeah, I thought it was a good length and things like that. But yeah, I don't know if you could get through the forest, then yeah, maybe you wouldn't be interested in the second one either. But I have no idea how the two compare actually.
Other than
So
that,
maybe.
there's Secret World, and technically you can play it in first person. I don't think it's wise, but it
I'm
can be
actually not
done.
familiar.
It's a MMORPG,
Oh, okay.
and it is a modern day. There's horror in it. It is definitely one of those. It's one of those things. I'm like, it's a horror game, but also it's horror in its moments, not necessarily in its all encompassing atmosphere and narrative.
Okay.
It's really good. I really love Secret World. It is free to play.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to look into that one because I guess the MMO RPG that I usually play is Final Fantasy 14, which isn't really horror at all. So that sounds very intriguing. I think I like the type of I like MMOs. I think that they're really fun. So,
It's a very unique one. It's really
hmm
cool, but you can think of it as like there's since it's free to play, you can think of it as this is an RPG that's free that has like 200 hours of story, and
oh
you
wow.
can play it with your friends. I am making my way through my second character right now.
Yeah, very nice. I love that. Um, in that game in Secret World, do you kind of like Final Fantasy 14, like do you kind of go through the story on your own and then you can do dungeons or, you know, uh, do different challenges with your friends kind of separately, or do you go through the story as well with your friends?
If you want to go through the story, like
Hmm
the narrative story that is in the game,
hmm
that you can get some help from friends, but some things it will make you do alone.
Okay, sure.
And the closest you could get really is to have someone make a character alongside yours, and then you could be experiencing even the solo parts together. But like,
hmm
I always offer my services. Like, I've beaten the game with a character that like nothing in the narrative story of that game is an issue or a problem for my most leveled character at all. It does
hmm
take away a lot of the horror because everything just melts around my character, but like um
Oh.
it's it's definitely something where like yes, there's dungeons you can do some of them alone, but it's definitely intended that you play it with friends. But the
hmm
narrative story of it, yeah, it's intended to be done by yourself.
Okay. And that totally makes sense. I was just curious. It sounds neat though. Sounds like it has a good balance of like solo play and playing with your friends. So, sounds very cool.
Let me ask you this. How do you feel about puzzles in horror games?
All right, that's a touchy subject, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm ready
Um
for it. I'm ready for it.
Okay. I I like a good amount of puzzles and a good I feel like I don't know exactly where the line is. I do feel like I appreciate a challenge every once in a while. I do like that. I think that if I'm just going through a horror game and it's just easy peasy, I'm just going through and I'm just getting jump scared. It's just jump scares. And I prefer to have a little bit of a challenge with it as well. So I do like that. But I'm one of those people who, if I am playing a game for the first time, any game, whether it's a horror game or something else, I'll usually try it on the easiest difficulty almost possible,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's going to be too easy. I try and give myself maybe a little bit of challenge, but I'm not one of those people who loves to sit and try and do a puzzle for hours. It makes some people, they like the really hard things, and once they've spent hours trying to get through a puzzle or a battle or something like that, then it makes them feel very accomplished when they finally get it done. I am not one of those people. I feel like by that time I'm just angry, and it's like, good riddance, like, get that out of here. I don't feel any kind of accomplishment. I just feel frustration. And so I love puzzles if they kind of make sense. I know that I've come across a couple of puzzles in different horror games, Resident Evil, that just don't really seem to make a lot of sense, and I just kind of have to stumble into the answer, it seems. But if there's a puzzle that makes sense, I take a little bit of time, figuring it out. I have to use my brain. I personally love that. I love having puzzles in horror games. I think it breaks up kind of the jump scares, so it kind of calms you down for a second, and then when you run into something else, you can get re-scared again, and I love that aspect. But as long as I'm not spending an hour on one puzzle, I'm happy. Anything, anything too out of, I don't know, out of left field, I just get frustrated. So I think people have to be careful with the types of puzzles they put in their horror games. But how do you feel about that?
I personally love puzzles. Um, I used to get frustrated by them, and now I welcome them very much because me personally, I would rather take a puzzle where I can sit, think about it, analyze it, maybe take some notes, try to figure something out,
Mhm.
than do a boss fight where I'm just slamming my head against the wall trying over and over and over again to beat it.
I That makes sense. I get that. Yeah. I love that. I think that is kind of true because I feel like with a puzzle, maybe you kind of feel like every step in that puzzle is progress. And I feel like sometimes when we're just, fighting the same boss battle over and over again, I feel like you just lose as much progress as you gain every
Mm-hmm.
time you die. And so, yeah, that can feel very stagnant. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like with puzzles, you feel like you're kind of moving in some direction most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. I never thought about that because both could, take a hell of a lot of time, but
Yeah.
they do feel different. I agree.
One of the reasons I asked is because I'm not even exaggerating. Secret World has the hardest puzzles I've ever seen in a video game.
Really?
And 90% of them are optional, and the ones that are not optional are much easier and are comprehensive and such. They
Okay.
don't force you to do the horrendously difficult ones that are there, but my god, Secret Worlds puzzles are relentless.
Huh.
They're called investigation missions, and I have had to have documents open on my computer and have a different window for actually two different windows open on my internet browser to try to solve some of these things.
Wow.
And while there's plenty of people it's definitely things where you can go, okay, let me just look up the answer, and you can do that. If you want to solve some of these the way that the game intends, some of these are wild, absolutely wild. I feel like it's impossible for me to describe it with just words. So let me tell you that one of the puzzles involves you writing down Japanese kanji down on a piece of paper and folding it into a certain origami to get it to spell a certain thing when folded a certain way, and then you translate it back into English and it tells you what to do.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So are you saying that you in real life have to write it down on a piece of paper or is
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I feel like that is extremely rare for a video game to have you use physical items around you to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually awesome. Wow. Yeah, I would not have expected it to go that far. That's
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
that's just one of them that goes there. Secret World,
Wow.
it it will take you to these incredibly difficult puzzles. But like I said, 90% of them are optional, and all the ones that are like that, they are optional.
Sure, that makes sense. So I'm just amazed with people who come up with these puzzles. Like, do you think about that? I'm just like, who the heck thought of this? I think it's really impressive. They keep us gamers like entertained and challenged. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend Nixus recently,
Oh yeah.
and we were talking about Silent Hill 3 has this puzzle that everyone knows is just the Shakespeare puzzle. Uh,
I've heard of it, but I've never played the game, so that's funny.
the Silent Hill games, they have, you can select the puzzle difficulty separately for most of them. So
Okay.
you set your action difficulty and your puzzle difficulty. On easy and medium puzzle difficulty, the Shakespeare puzzle is just, oh, there's books on the ground, and then you put them in the wall in a certain order, and you can see like the door code on the binding of the books. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple
Sure.
puzzle. If you put that on hard, it gives you like this riddle that meanders through a bunch of Shakespeare plays that are not commonly known Shakespeare plays.
Mm-hmm.
And when you open the books to check which play it is, you don't get the title because why would you? It just tells you, it gives you another part of the play that you read and you go, oh, that might be from this other thing that corresponds to the thing that I read. And this is a puzzle that would be in Secret World. But the thing is that Secret World was released in the time where the internet was a big popular thing. It's an MMO, so you have to be on the internet to be playing it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So they expect you to go online and do some research on some things. And
Yeah.
Silent Hill 3 released at a time where the internet wasn't a huge thing in everyone's household yet. So
Yeah.
they just wanted you to go down to your local library or something and start reading Shakespeare. And I want to know what that person had against gamers.
Right. Like we need to introduce something a little bit different. Get
Mm-hmm.
them out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Out of the house, into the library.
That's so funny. Oh my. One day I'll have to try that and just see what it looks like because that's so hilarious.
Have you played any Silent Hill games?
I I've never been a PlayStation person, and so I did play one. Well, I tried to play one Silent Hill game that was available on the PC for a little while, but I think it was like Silent Hill 4. It was not very
Yeah.
good. It was like I was very impressed with certain aspects of it. Like it scared me a few times. I literally yelled and jumped a couple of times. It was amazing, even though it was extremely pixelated and
Mm-hmm.
just terrible graphics. The camera angles were insane. Um, but yeah, I never finished it because it didn't really keep my interest the way that I was hoping it would. But I also have heard that that's not the best Silent Hill game.
Silent Hill 4 is a very divisive game. There's plenty of people who think that it's a masterpiece. There's an equal amount of people who think it's like the worst of the franchise.
Sure.
Um, I I don't particularly like Silent Hill 4, but
Yeah.
like I don't think that it's the worst of the franchise. Silent
Sure.
Hill has many ups and downs in it for sure.
That's what I've heard. Just like Resident Evil, you have
Oh
your
yeah.
amazing ones and then your ones that people really kind of hate.
Yep. Yep.
I hear that Silent Hill 2 is like the Silent Hill game. It's like the most iconic, um, kind of most terrifying one that people really seem to remember. I
Yeah.
don't know though.
I have thoughts on Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
It's mostly the fact that I agree. Silent Hill 2 is my favorite of the franchise. I really
Okay.
love it, and I think that it is just a fantastic game through and through, and I really wouldn't change anything about it. I think that it's just outstanding.
Mhm.
What frustrates me is how many people just dismiss the first Silent Hill because
Oh
of Silent
no.
Hill 2. And it's like, and I'm like, wait a minute, Silent Hill 1 was also really good. But
Mm.
the fact that, so Konami is having Team Bloober remaster it, or not even remaster it, remake it entirely in the vein that um, Resident Evil has been doing with their older titles recently.
Mhm.
I don't know why they are doing Silent Hill 2 and not Silent Hill 1. And
Oh, that is sad. I didn't know that.
it's a little bit frustrating to me because, like, I get it. Silent Hill 2 is great. I love it. I really do. But Silent Hill 2 has been remastered before. And while I do not think that it was a great remaster, that's also like there was the original PlayStation 2 release, there was the director's cut release of it, then there was a PC release of it, and then there was a remaster in HD of it where they changed some things that notably they should not have changed. But now there's going to be a remake of it.
Yeah, before
And
they even touch the first one.
yeah, the first one, it hasn't gotten any of that. It hasn't been remastered, hasn't a director's cut, none of it. And I don't understand. The first
Yeah.
one is really good. So it's just frustrating to me when Silent Hill fans will say, "Wow, 2 is fantastic and amazing." And then if you say, "Hey, I really like Silent Hill 1," and they're just like, "Nah, 1 is it's not as good as 2." And I'm like, "God damn it, take it back."
Doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I really love Silent Hill 2, but I also really love Silent Hill 1, and it makes me sad to see that it almost never gets the same amount of love as 2 or 3 even.
Right. Oh, that is a bummer because you're right. I don't think I've ever heard anyone really talking about Silent Hill 1 being neglected.
It is.
Hmm.
It saddens me.
It's
And
all right.
just kind of Konami giving this okay to Bloober to do this remake kind of solidified this, like, oh, so you're just abandoning the first game entirely, and I'm never going to
Yeah.
get to play the remake because I know a lot of people who would never play Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4 if it were not for the remakes existing.
Yeah.
And it bums me out because Resident Evil 2 with the remake, they changed a whole bunch of things that I wish that they didn't change. And while that's
Mm.
personal, I it feels bad because there's lots of moments that I really wanted to see some of my friends experience that just aren't there. And
Yeah.
same thing with 3. 3 was really egregious with a lot of the things that they changed in that. And
That's what I heard.
while while that's true, at least people are playing the game and experiencing the story. At least that's happening. And it's making the
Mm.
game accessible to an audience who otherwise would not go back to, like, buy a PlayStation 1 to play a game
Mhm.
that, compared to today's gaming standards, handles terribly and is not very comfortable or very forgiving in its methods of gameplay.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what is my answer to, like, hey, you should play Silent Hill 1? That's me saying go buy a PlayStation 1 to go and get this game that costs $200 now,
Yeah.
to go and to play something. And it's frustrating because instead we're going to get that for Silent Hill 2, which has been re-released and re-released in various different ways already.
Mhm.
Anyways, that was my rant.
No, that totally makes sense. And that's so funny because yeah, I didn't think about that with Silent Hill because that's probably the only way that I'm going to play really any of the Silent Hill games is probably PC remakes. The first Resident Evil game that I ever played, and I didn't even know that Resident Evil was a thing because this was way at the beginning when I just was starting to get into horror games. Um, I ended up playing Resident Evil 3. That was the first one that I ever
Mm.
played, the remake,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when it was coming out. And so I was super confused. It was just like, this is such a cool game. And then people were saying, this is not nearly as good as the original. They did it dirty and stuff. And I'm like, I think this game's fantastic. So it
Right.
is kind of interesting that, and how you were talking about how they kind of handled Resident Evil 2 and 3. That is true that there are a lot of things that I probably missed from the originals. But at the same time, it is really cool that a lot of people are able to be familiar with the franchise,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's something that I'm kind of excited about. Like I'm able to talk about who Jill is and
Yeah.
Leon and whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so that's something that I'm really looking forward to when I wish that they would start with Silent Hill 1. I would totally play that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are releasing Silent Hill 2 first, for more people to experience, I'll probably dive into that
Right.
then. But
Right.
yeah, hopefully I'll be able to talk to people about Silent Hill and know what they're talking about and be
Mm-hmm.
familiar with references. I love that about remakes.
Mm-hmm.
But it is sad that we have to just be like, okay, bye bye to the originals.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a bittersweet thing, I think.
Yeah, and those games, I think another frustrating aspect about it too is, for whatever reason, Konami is that what they could do is just do either a little bit of extra work to port out their old games onto more systems, including PC, to let people at least try it out. And until then, there's going to be people who emulate it. And
That's true.
I don't have a problem with emulators, but how are big game companies going to complain about people emulating games when you're not selling them anymore?
That's true. What else are they going to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, it's like, if people really want to play Silent Hill 1, the easiest thing I can tell them to do is, hey, here's some instructions on how to emulate it if you want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, what am I going to do? Because it's like, well, first of all, go buy a PlayStation 1 and then go buy this game. It normally goes for $150, $200. And then you
Exactly.
can play this. And, like, absolutely, like,
Tempting, but
yeah, yeah. It's such
gosh.
an unreasonable thing to ask of someone. And because otherwise, it'd be easy to say, hey, the old Resident Evil 2 will always be around. Hey, the old Resident Evil 3 will always be there, available. But not if game companies are just refusing to release them ever, because then it's just going to be dependent on the community to just keep emulating them, which for some reason they don't like, even though there's what's the competition there? It's not piracy if you're not selling it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so interesting. I do feel bad because a lot of these kind of older games or games that we grow up playing that, maybe some of our first horror games ever when we're young, those become very nostalgic and like very kind of big parts of our lives and
Mhm.
our personalities and just our experiences. And so to just have those games completely unplayable after a
Mhm.
while, people are absolutely going to do everything they can to keep those alive
Mhm.
because it means something to them. And so, yeah, if companies are thinking, oh, don't emulate our games, the game that got you through that really depressive episode when you were 10, like, no, people are going to have, I don't know. It depends on the person. I feel like everyone has, something that they want to hold on to because it got them through something or um it was, I don't know, some kind of nostalgic time with their friends or something like that. And yeah, like I completely support people being able to hold on to those things if there isn't another, I don't know, more acceptable way of accessing it, I guess.
Mhm.
That's kind of interesting.
I am at the very least like, even though I'm frustrated that Konami is doing 2 before 1 if they ever do 1, I am excited that a lot of people are going to be able to play 2 who otherwise wouldn't,
Mhm.
because it is a really great story. And while I do not trust Team Bloober entirely with it, at the very least, it should be out there and accessible. So that
Yeah.
that is something to look forward to, and I look forward to you experiencing that.
Thank you. I know. I really hope that they do it well, just because I've heard so many amazing things. And I mean, we all know freaking Pyramid Head, like
Oh yeah.
iconic.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited to maybe just see a little bit more of the story or, where the heck that came from.
Mhm.
'Cause he's one of my favorite kind of like villains, especially in Dead by Daylight. Like Pyramid Head is awesome. And I'm like, I haven't even played Silent Hill. Like
Mhm.
I'm already in
Mhm.
love with this with the franchise just because of this one character.
Right.
So yeah, I am excited for that, but fingers crossed that they do it well.
For
Yeah. I
sure.
feel like this is one that they really, really don't want to mess up.
Oh yeah. If they mess up, the fans will immediately let them know.
Oh gosh. Yeah. They'll be ruthless. Oh my gosh.
Mhm. It's too beloved to
Exactly.
ruin. Like, honestly, if that's my one hope for Bloober, is that they should be aware that if they mess this up, they'll be done. They'll never get to touch Silent Hill ever again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't think about that. They are on the chopping block
Mhm.
for that one. Oh, well, I hope for the fans, but mostly I hope for them, I guess, too. Don't mess it up.
Well, let me ask you, besides like the remakes and such things, new games, new horror games, what are you looking forward to this year or just in the future in general? Because there are new Silent Hill projects just announced in general. Um,
Hmm.
and that's what made me think about that. And I was just gonna be like, "Are you looking forward to the new Silent Hills?" And I was like, "Let me just ask if there's anything that you're really looking forward to."
Yeah. I feel like recently, so something that I was really looking forward to for a very long time was Outlast Trials.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like since I've been kind of waiting for that one to come out, I was also waiting for the Last of Us PC edition to come out, and I finished that. So good. But other than those two, I was kind of thinking about it the other day. I'm like, what am I? What horror games am I looking forward to next? Silent Hill 2, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like there was maybe one that I'm not remembering though. I feel like Outlast Trials was kind of my last one that I was like, okay, this is the one that I'm really looking forward to. And then after that, I nothing's really super. I guess I don't have the same amount of enthusiasm for any games coming out, except for The Last of Us 2, whenever the heck that is. I'm just hoping for that one soon. But also, I haven't played that one, and I've heard multiple differing opinions on that one, so I'm a little nervous. But
Don't worry about
other
them.
ones,
They're wrong.
okay, cool. I've heard, yeah, good and bad opinions. So thank you for that. I'm hoping I really like it. But yeah, I'll just have to see kind of when things come out if I'm interested.
Well, we
But
do
yeah.
have new Amnesia in a couple weeks.
Oh, another one?
Yeah.
How many are there? Like 4 now?
4, 5 if you want to count Justine, but Justine is just
Ah.
kind of DLC for the first one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow, I didn't even know that they had another one coming out. I loved Amnesia, but I actually, let's see. I played 2 of the Amnesia games. I think that's it. Does this one look like it's going to be good?
It looks real spooky. I'm pretty excited for it.
Okay. Okay, I'll have to look into that one. I think that since I was waiting for Outlast Trials for so long and they just kept pushing it back and back, I haven't really been looking for any other
Right.
games coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was discouraging to see that one keep being pushed back. I'm like, hey, we're just
Right,
gonna wait for
right.
that one and I'll focus on other things. But
Yeah,
maybe I should start looking into that again.
they kept pushing back Amnesia too. It's
Oh,
Amnesia the Bunker is what it's called.
okay.
And I think right now its release date is June 6th, but originally it was supposed to come out in March.
Ooh.
And they kept pushing it back. And I think the first time they pushed it back was just because they were like, oh, there's some bugs. We want some more time to work on it. Cool. Then they pushed
Mm-hmm.
it back to May. And I think they pushed it back this time because they didn't want to release at the same time as Zelda.
Oh, I
That would
mean,
be my
I don't blame
guess.
them. I wouldn't blame them for sure, but yeah, that's hard for people waiting for that game. That's how I felt about Sons of the Forest as well.
Mm-hmm.
They kept pushing that one back, and I was so upset. It's so hard. Maybe I'm just trying to avoid, getting my heart broken.
Right.
I'll just be like, "Oh, this game's out. Okay, now we can play it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
'Cause man, they do that a lot. No, but that will be a fun one. I really like the Amnesia games. At least the 2 that I've played. I heard that
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Machine for Pigs or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
I heard that one wasn't as good, so I kind of skipped that one, but I don't know if you've played that one
I
before.
have.
Did you like it?
I have. Remember what I said about Outlast and Outlast 2?
Yes.
The Amnesia games, I also have a complicated relationship with all of them.
Mm.
Um, but I like them all for specific reasons.
Mhm.
For Dark Descent, I think it has the best atmosphere, but the worst gameplay. And
Okay.
um, it has a very mid story. And I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
for Rebirth, it has the best gameplay, the worst atmosphere, or no, the best gameplay, the worst story, and mid atmosphere. And
Okay.
then Machine for Pigs, I think, has the best story,
Hmm.
the worst atmosphere, the worst gameplay.
Okay. So that's
So
probably that makes sense.
just for the fact that Machine for Pigs, its story is so good. I literally think that it's the best story out of all the Amnesia games so far. I truly, truly believe that.
Dang.
It's just annoying to play.
And that makes a really big
It
difference.
does.
I always say that I don't care how good a game is. And I'll usually just use, technical issues or something as an
Mm-hmm.
example. I don't care how good the game is, the story, the graphics. I don't care if the if the technical issues or if the gameplay is, troublesome or causes issues. I, you can't love the game like you could have if
Yeah.
it was just, if it would run smoothly or if it was, you know, smooth to play in game. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand that can really taint a game. But that's good to know. Cuz yeah, I am a sucker for a good story, but
Yeah.
also I can get frustrated with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think the other big horror release that's supposed to come out this year, though they haven't put out like a release date besides just 2023,
Mhm.
is Alan Wake 2.
Oh, I've never played Alan Wake. I, I
It
hear so many good things about it.
I love Alan Wake so much. Alan Wake
Booning.
is a fantastic story, and honestly, Alan Wake is one of my favorite stories in horror gaming. I think that it's it's worth knowing that through and through, its intention is to be an action game first and a horror game second.
Okay.
And knowing that and that there's going to be a lot of combat involved, like it's worth knowing that because I think a lot of people went into Alan Wake being like, "Oh, I heard that this is a spooky game," and
Mm.
after like 50 straight minutes of combat, we're just like, "I don't know about this anymore, y'all."
That
Um,
makes sense, yeah.
but what's got my attention for Alan Wake 2 is that the developers, Remedy, they said after their first trailer for it that this is going to be their first survival horror game that they're making. Alan Wake 1 was an action game with some horror in it, but Alan Wake
Hmm.
2 is going to be a full-fledged horror game. And that immediately I'm like, amazing. I'm here.
Ooh,
I'm here for it.
right? Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Oh no, that's good to know. Maybe I need to play the first one before that one comes out.
I would recommend it, but I want to give the warning. It is an action game first. Um,
Yeah, that's good to know. Because I don't know if I'd ever heard that before.
Great story. I think you will love the story.
Yay. Oh man. Because yeah, everyone that I know who's played that game just absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think that I have just when I'm watching somebody play it or things like that, I could see it. I just had never thought about it, but I could see it being more of an action game
Mm-hmm.
than a horror game. Maybe that's why I wasn't initially incredibly drawn to it. So that what you're saying absolutely makes sense.
Did you play Control?
No, what's that?
It's another game from the same developers, Remedy, and it takes
Oh.
place in the same universe that Alan Wake does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know or think that Control is necessary to play in order to understand what's going on for Alan Wake 2 when it releases.
Mm-hmm.
But Alan Wake, the original, has such a an involved story. I can't imagine that 2 is just going to be like sort of pick up and play. Never played the first one. I'm sure things will make sense.
Sure, sure. Okay. Yeah, that's very good to know. I could see that. So, yeah, and I wonder if as we get closer, if I don't know if we'll hear anything more about like, oh, maybe people should play Control before. I wonder if I don't know
Yeah.
if we'll hear anything about that later. Cause yeah, that would be good to know. Maybe I know about Alan Wake, but I don't know if I'm not super familiar with the developers or anything else they've done. So yeah, I didn't even know that that existed.
I
That's cool though.
I think besides Alan Wake, the thing that Remedy is most known for is Max Payne.
Hmm. I might have heard of that one, But yeah,
It's
I think I'm
fun
just.
slow motion shooter where you play a sad person.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, nope, not familiar. Oh my gosh. That's the best description of a
I
game
was
I've ever heard
trying
in my
to
life, though.
I was trying to think of how do I sum up a trilogy of games really quickly, and now I'm laughing at my own description.
I think it's fantastic. You should definitely be a critic. Oh man. Yeah. That will be exciting though. Okay, Alan Wake 2. Oof. Good to know. Gotta prepare.
Yeah, I think it's being published by Epic, so therefore I think it's going to be an Epic Games exclusive.
Okay, okay. That's totally fine. I use Epic Games as well.
Yeah, I check over there every once in a while, being like, "Hey, is there a release date for this yet?"
Yeah,
Because it has
yeah,
the
right.
store pages there, but like it doesn't have a date. It just like TBA, TBD, or whatever.
Yes. Ugh. Trauma. No, that's awesome. I'll definitely have to look back into, you know, new horror games coming out soon. I just feel like I haven't kept up with it since most of the games that I had been waiting for were pushed back. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
also, The Last of Us was pushed back a month, and that was very upsetting for me too. So I think maybe I'm just not depending on, dates anymore. It's kind of
Right.
like, well, once they put it out, then I'll believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. But I should still be aware of, what's going to be coming out in the future at some point.
Yeah, I think for horror, the two big ones are the Amnesia in a couple weeks and whenever Alan Wake 2 is coming out. I think those are the big
Hmm.
ones. Well, and Silent Hill
Exactly.
2's remake, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because for a lot
But
of people, the one that they were waiting for already came out, which was the RE4 remake.
yes, that's true. And I've been hearing so many good things about that. I haven't played it though.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
Yeah.
good.
Did you finish it?
I did. I
Oh man.
personally believe that unlike the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remake, I think
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil 4 remake is just objectively it's better than the original. It's
My
just
gosh.
it's the perfect experience for that story and that game.
Beautiful. Oh no, that's another one I have to play. Okay. All right. Good to know. That's awesome.
Well, all right, Heidi, thank you for joining me on my podcast here.
Gosh, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
For
This has been fun.
sure. I'm
And
glad
you've
that
been
you had
educating
fun.
me. Thank you.
Listen, all I do is just talk about horror games all the time.
Fantastic. I love it.
Why don't
Thank
you
you.
shout yourself out? Talk about where people can find you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm HailHeidi on basically anywhere. I react to videos on YouTube and also stream on Twitch. I do play horror games. I'll react to things as well and do just chatting on Twitch as well. So it's just very chill. But yeah, that's about it. Those are the main places I'm at. So thank you so much, though.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Always good talking.
And everyone out there, thank you for listening. I will catch y'all later for the next episode of Press Start to Scream.